Hand the item over to me. In the light rain, Chen stood tense, his gaze fixed firmly ahead. There, a figure holding a flower umbrella gradually appeared. It was a man, somewhat slender in build, his face strikingly delicate and feminine. His thin lips were sharp like a blade, exuding a chill. Chen stared at the unfamiliar, feminine man, a dangerous feeling rising in his chest. His eyes narrowed as he said, "You're not from the Lu domain, are you? Why are you looking for me?" Indeed. I'm not from the Lu domain. It's just that someone paid a hefty price for me to take action," the effeminate man replied with a faint smile. He gently twirled the flower umbrella in his hand, his thin lips pressed together. "You can call me Jizong." Jizong? The Rain Man, Jizong? Chen's pupils contracted slightly. This name was not less famous than Bloodslaughter in the Northern Spirit Realm. Of course, this did not mean Jizong's strength surpassed that of Bloodslaughter. His strength should be around the early Spirit Wheel stage. However, his other identity was far more terrifying. He was a first-grade Spirit Array Master. The Great Thousand Worlds, a place where countless realms intersect, was vast to the point that even the most powerful supreme beings could only sigh in awe at their insignificance. The world was full of brilliance, with myriad paths competing for dominance. Spirit Array Masters, Spirit Artifact Masters. Besides the conventional cultivation of spiritual energy, these unique professions were quite dazzling. And these professions required extremely strict talent. Even many people with extraordinary cultivation talent couldn't necessarily succeed in these fields. In contrast, some seemingly mediocre cultivators possessed astonishing aptitude in these areas. It was true in the Great Thousand Worlds that when one door closes, another one opens. Overall, Spirit Array Masters held a lofty status because many forces needed their help, whether for building defensive arrays, offensive arrays, or arrays beneficial for cultivation. Thus, a high-level Spirit Array Master was in high demand in the Great Thousand Worlds. Some Spirit Array Masters, with their profound understanding of arrays, could easily create formations with a mere gesture, shaking the heavens and earth with their power. The reason Jizong had such fame in the Northern Spirit Realm had nothing to do with his early Spirit Wheel stage strength. It was entirely due to his identity as a first-grade Spirit Array Master. A first-grade Spirit Array Master, within an array, could be as fearsome as a late-stage Spirit Wheel expert. "Didn't expect you, a student, to know my title," Jizong said with a soft laugh, his voice delicate and feminine, almost like a woman's, despite being a man. This contrast made people uncomfortable. "You're treading on dangerous ground by making a move in Northern Spirit City. If they find out, things won't end well for you." Chen's gaze flickered as he spoke. "That's exactly why I painstakingly set up this Mirage God Array. No one outside will know what happens here," Jizong said, gesturing around the empty street. "So, just hand the item over to me. I don't want to kill you, and I don't want to see Mufeng go mad. If we're both a little more cooperative, everything will go smoothly, won't it?" Chen's eyes turned icy. His spiritual energy subtly began to surge within him. Though trapped in Jizong's array, he was not one to easily yield. "It seems you really don't listen well." Jizong smiled faintly, then snapped his fingers. At that moment, the spring rain drifting in the sky became denser, and a vast wave of spiritual energy quietly emanated from him. "You're lucky to personally experience the power of my Spirit Rain Array," Jizong said as he waved his sleeve. Suddenly, the spring rain roared down like a torrent of blades, enveloping Chen in a relentless storm. Chen was startled by the force of this assault. As expected, Spirit Array Masters were formidable. Even with his strength at the Spirit Wheel stage, he would be forced to fight with his hands tied. Spirit Gathering Light. Chen quickly retreated, his dark spiritual energy surging out, forming a thin black light screen before him that protected his body. Bang, bang, bang. The torrential rain relentlessly pounded the black light screen, which trembled violently. Chen's strength, after all, was only at the late spirit movement stage. With Jizong activating the power of the formation to attack, Chen found it extremely difficult to resist. "I can't drag this on any longer. I must break the formation." Mu Chen gazed at the rapidly collapsing dark light, his mind racing. With his current strength, a direct confrontation would likely be futile against Jizong. His only option was to break the formation. Once the formation was destroyed, Jizong would lose his advantage, and without the formation's protection, he wouldn't dare act in the northern spirit realm. But breaking the formation set up by a first-grade spirit array master wouldn't be easy. Taking a deep breath, Mu Chen calmed himself in this perilous moment. His gaze flickered. Jizong was only a first-grade spirit array master. The formation he set up clearly couldn't reach the level of controlling the formation with his mind. That meant Jizong still had to rely on external objects to control it, and such objects would be his vulnerabilities, typically placed in the most protected areas. Mu Chen's eyes subtly swept over Jizong's body. After a moment, they focused on the flower umbrella in his hand. Mu Chen's strength was far below Jizong's, especially considering Jizong was manipulating the formation. However, Jizong knew this as well, which is why his underestimation would provide Mu Chen with the best opportunity. Crack! The black light formed by spiritual energy shattered completely in front of Mu Chen. Spring rain brushed his face, leaving a trace of blood. At the same time, his brows rose sharply like swords. With a stomp of his foot, water splashed, and his body shot forward like a leopard, charging straight at Jizong. Such an aggressive young man, Jizong remarked with a faint smile, then waved his hand. The spring rain gathered and transformed into a sharp rain spear, piercing toward Mu Chen with unmatched speed. Mu Chen lunged forward, bracing his hand on the ground to propel himself, dodging the sharp rain spear with the agility of a spirit monkey. Impressive agility, Jizong smiled and praised, but his attacks grew fiercer. With a wave of his hand, multiple long spears formed, sweeping at Mu Chen's vital points with deadly angles. Mu Chen agilely evaded, but one spear still grazed his chest, tearing his clothes and drawing blood. However, he paid no attention to the wound, leaping forward with a burst of speed, closing the distance to Jizong. Jizong raised an eyebrow and spoke with a soft, almost mocking tone. So you've decided to target the master of the formation directly. Not bad. You actually have some sharp vision, but your plan is flawed. You overestimate your strength and underestimate the gap between us. Jizong smirked and clenched his hand. The spring rain in the sky gathered into his palm and formed into a liquid-like rain sword, brimming with powerful spiritual energy. Mu Chen's fists clenched tightly. Black light surged, and two black light seals, filled with domineering spiritual energy, appeared. Without hesitation, he sent them flying toward Jizong. The fist seals whistled through the air, tearing the rain apart. The sound of the wind cutting through the air caused Jizong to pause in surprise. He hadn't expected Mu Chen, with his late spirit movement stage strength, to unleash such a fierce attack. If Jizong weren't a spirit array master but just at the early spirit wheel stage, he would probably struggle to capture Mu Chen today. But still not enough. Jizong's eyes turned cold. His water sword trembled, emitting a hum as it transformed into a water snake, violently striking the two black light seals. The violent spiritual energy surged outward. The wave of spiritual energy sent Mu Chen stumbling backward. The two death seals were forced to retreat. Although Jizong was only at the early spirit wheel stage, the power of the formation allowed him to withstand the strength of someone at the late spirit wheel stage. Mu Chen couldn't hope to gain the upper hand in direct combat. Mu Chen gritted his teeth, staring at the two death seals that were being pushed back, then at the sharp sword tip, the coldness seeping into his bones, making his skin tingle. The sense of threat loomed in his heart, and Mu Chen's eyes suddenly widened in fury. A furious shout erupted from the depths of his soul, and at that moment, the great Pagoda art also began to activate. After several trials, he had come to understand that there seemed to be a hidden power within him. However, that power could only be triggered in moments of life and death danger. And now, this was the perfect opportunity. Come out. Mu Chen's shout echoed in his mind, and as the sound reverberated, his body suddenly lit up with dazzling rays of light. A faint, shimmering light tower appeared, emitting radiance that penetrated Mu Chen's skin, faintly manifesting inside his body. Buzz. At the moment the blurry light tower began to emerge within Mu Chen's body, a strange wave of energy suddenly surged from within him. Though the fluctuation wasn't particularly strong, when it reached Jizong, the latter's body trembled slightly, and a momentary daze flickered in his eyes. Humph. However, the daze lasted only an instant before Jizong coldly snorted and recovered. Mu Chen was indeed different from ordinary youths. No wonder Lu Domain had asked him to intervene. However, no matter how hard he struggled, the vast gap between them could never be easily bridged. Whoosh! Jizong's arm trembled, and the long sword formed from condensed rainwater rapidly expanded. In a violent surge of spiritual energy, it forcefully shattered the two netherworld death seals, and then, like lightning, it stabbed towards Mu Chen's shoulder. Clang! Jizong's attack was incredibly sharp, cutting through the gap between the two netherworld death seals, leaving Mu Chen no time to defend. The rainwater sword pierced his shoulder. However, at the moment of contact, the blurry light tower within Mu Chen's body seemed to vibrate, causing the rainwater sword to momentarily halt before the tip finally embedded into his shoulder, blood seeping out. Swish! Looking at this scene, Jizong smiled faintly, clearly believing the situation was settled. His gaze fell on the young man in front of him, only to see that beneath the light rain, a pair of pitch-black eyes were staring at him, like deep, unfathomable black holes. A silent sense of danger suddenly surged in Jizong's heart. Swish! The young man before him paid no attention to the sword lodged in his shoulder. Not even the pain caused his brow to twitch. His palms shook, and a cold light shot out, finally grazing the umbrella handle that Jizong held in his left hand. The umbrella fell weakly, scattering raindrops. Jizong stared blankly at the scene, then turned his gaze to the young man who had suddenly retreated. Blood continued to flow from his shoulder. You actually noticed? Jizong's mouth moved, but his expression grew serious. The young man before him had spotted the flaw in his formation and, more shockingly, had the audacity to use his own body as bait. This caused Jizong to expose a brief opening when he attacked to injure him. The youth had seized that fleeting moment, acted without hesitation, and severed the umbrella, thereby breaking the connection between Jizong and the formation. You've lost. Mu Chen flashed a grin at Jizong. As his laughter faded, the spring rain had already stopped. The air around seemed to shimmer with light, and then Mu Chen began to hear faint voices reaching his ears. It was still the same street, but the ground was dry with no trace of rain, and sunlight even streamed down from the sky. In the distance, shadowy figures appeared. Clearly, the mirage god array that had enveloped him had been shattered. Mu Chen focused ahead, where Jizong was looking at him with a serious expression. After a moment, he smiled and said, "You really are a remarkable young man. I didn't expect Mu Feng to have such an excellent son." Mu Chen smiled back, his eyes filled with wariness and caution. "Do you still plan to make a move? The formation is broken. I can't kill you now. What happens next has nothing to do with me, but you'd better be careful," Jizong said with a faint smile, his gaze lingering on Mu Chen for a moment before he turned and walked away slowly. Mu Chen watched Jizong retreat, his brow still furrowed tightly. The feeling of danger hadn't completely faded, and it was clear that Lu Domain had made up its mind not to let him return to Mu Domain easily. As Mu Chen vigilantly scanned his surroundings, two cold, piercing gazes suddenly cut through the gaps in the street and locked onto his figure in the distance. "Third uncle, what should we do next?" A handsome young man frowned and asked, standing next to the middle-aged man. The familiar face was none other than Lu Mubai, and the middle-aged man was Lu Ming. It's a good thing I never fully trusted Jizong. I only had him go first to test the waters. If he could handle it, that would be ideal. If not, we will take matters into our own hands." Lu Ming sneered and said, "No matter what, we cannot let Mu Chen bring that thing back to Mu Domain. If he does, it will interfere with the plans we've been preparing for so long in Lu Domain. But if we act now, we might attract unwanted attention," Lu Mubai muttered. "Then let's finish him off quickly." A cold glint flashed in Lu Ming's eyes as he waved his hand. Immediately, 10 figures leapt out from behind him. Their murderous aura was palpable, and the spiritual energy radiating from them indicated they were all at the early spirit wheel stage. Move out. Yes. The 10 figures responded in unison, their voices deep and resolute. Their bodies flickered and vanished into the darkness. On the street, Chen, who had been vigilantly watching his surroundings, suddenly narrowed his eyes. His gaze shifted forward, where 10 figures shot out from the shadows and rapidly surrounded him in a ring. 10 experts at the early spirit wheel stage. Seeing the 10 figures, Chen's heart tensed slightly. The Lu domain's killing intent toward him was evident. Though they dared not act personally in Biling City, they had certainly prepared plenty of trouble for him. I can't fight them head-on. I must escape. Chen's mind raced, and his body quickly retreated. No matter how arrogant he was, he knew he stood no chance against 10 battle-hardened experts at the early spirit wheel stage. Whoosh! Whoosh! The 10 figures charged toward him, their spiritual power erupting with murderous intent, filling the air. The commotion drew attention from the distance, and it was clear that the noise was starting to alert others. Damn it! Chen cursed under his breath as he saw the rapid approach of the attackers. His spiritual power surged within him, and dark, eerie black energy flickered from his arms. Clearly, he was preparing to risk everything in a desperate attempt. He needed to buy some time. Whoosh! The 10 figures rapidly closed in. Their coordination was flawless. As they scattered, they formed a perfect encirclement, sealing off all of Chen's escape routes. 10 sharp long swords thrust toward his vital points. Chen's eyes locked onto the incoming attacks, and the dark energy around his arms grew more intense. Just as he was about to make a move, a loud roar, like thunder, suddenly rang out. Who dares to strike at the young master of Mu Domain? You are seeking death. With the thunderous roar, a figure shot through the air like lightning. In the blink of an eye, the figure landed in front of Chen. A wave of his sleeve sent a torrent of spiritual energy surging out, and the 10 figures were immediately sent flying, their bodies crashing backward. Uncle Zhou. Chen's face lit up with joy as he recognized the familiar figure. Finally, help had arrived. The lean, middle-aged man in front of him was Zhou Yi from Mu Domain. His hawk-like gaze locked onto the 10 figures that had been sent flying, but he did not pursue them. Instead, he stood beside Chen, protecting him. Kill them! Zhou Ye's voice was cold and commanding as he glared at the 10 figures. At his command, dozens of figures rushed from nearby, heading straight for the 10 attackers. Seeing this, the 10 figures gritted their teeth, and with a wave of their sleeves, smoke billowed up. Taking advantage of the cover, they quickly began to retreat. Bastards! Somewhere on the street, Lu Ming watched as Zhou Yi led his forces to arrive just in time, and his face twisted with rage. He hadn't expected that, at this crucial moment, Zhou Yi would ruin his plans. Third uncle? Lu Mubai frowned. He hadn't anticipated that their plans would go awry yet again. Return to Lu Domain and tell your father about this. I want to see how bold Mu Feng is to interfere with our Lu Domain's plans. Lu Mubai sighed helplessly upon seeing this. His gaze pierced through a gap, looking at Chen, who was now protected by the people from Mu Domain. A cold glint flashed in his eyes. Lucky brat, he muttered. You can count on your good fortune this time. But next time, I'm afraid you won't get such a chance. On the street, Zhou Yi stood guard in front of Chen, his sharp, hawk-like gaze scanning the surroundings. After a moment, his body gradually relaxed as he sensed the faint killing intent begin to recede. Whoosh! Dozens of figures swooped in, surrounding Chen and Zhou Yi. Young master, Lord Zhou? Chen, are you all right? Zhou Yi asked, feeling the killing intent dissipate. He let out a sigh of relief before turning to look at Chen. Chen smiled and shook his head. I'm fine, Uncle Zhou. You arrived just in time. What happened? Zhou Ye's expression darkened. As soon as I received the news from Su Ling, I rushed straight to Biling City. Who are these people? Why would they target you? They should be from Lu Domain, Chen replied. Lu Domain? Zhou Ye's face changed, and then he looked puzzled. Though we, Mu domain and Lu domain have always had conflicts. We've managed to keep things somewhat restrained. Why would they? Uncle Zhou, let's head back to Mu City first. I ruined some of their plans. Mu Chen smiled faintly. The commotion here was noticeable, and people would likely arrive soon. Though Mu Chen knew it was Lu domain's doing, there was no solid evidence. So, this matter would likely end unresolved. All right. Zhou Yi nodded, gesturing for Mu Chen to follow, as they headed directly for the city's teleportation spirit array. With Zhou Ye's protection, nothing else went wrong. It seemed Lu domain knew it was futile to pursue further and temporarily backed off. In Mu City, at the Mu residence, Lu domain targeted Mu Chen. In the living room, when Mu Feng heard Zhou Ye's words, the resolute face, once full of smiles, instantly turned cold. He stood up abruptly, his expression full of fury. What does Lu domain think they're doing? Do they want to completely tear the relationship with Mu domain apart? They probably don't want to completely break ties yet, Mu Chen said with a smile. Otherwise, they wouldn't have first sent Jizong to take action and only resorted to doing it themselves when things were desperate. Jizong? Mu Feng's expression darkened. Zhou Yi furrowed his brows and asked, "Did he also make a move on you?" "Yes, he set up an array to trap me, but I broke it and he left," Mu Chen nodded. "You broke his array?" Both Mu Feng and Zhou Yi were taken aback, surprised at Mu Chen's words. They had heard of Jizong. Although his strength in the early spirit wheel stage wasn't much, his status as a first-grade spirit array master made him a formidable opponent. But now, Mu Chen had broken the array he set up. "Hey, I'm at the late spirit movement stage now, all right?" Mu Chen grinned at the surprise on their faces. Late spirit movement stage? Mu Feng was once again surprised, but then nodded with satisfaction. Though Mu Chen had been delayed by a year in the spirit road, his innate talent was exceptional. Now, he was truly catching up. Late spirit movement stage is nothing. If Jizong had fully deployed his array, even someone at the late spirit wheel stage would struggle. You think you could break his array with your strength? Mu Feng nodded with satisfaction, but couldn't stand seeing Mu Chen looking so pleased with himself. He immediately scolded him with a laugh. "That's exactly what Jizong thought, which is why I broke his array." Mu Chen rolled his eyes. "Looks like little Mu used Jizong's underestimation of him against him," Zhou Yi said with a smile. "That's some sharp wit. Not easy. Where's the praise in that?" Mu Feng laughed for a moment before becoming serious. "But why would Lu domain target you? And in Bailing City, no less? If this were discovered, it would cause an uproar. With their usual methods, they wouldn't do something this reckless. Also, the 5 Great Academy spots are about to be announced. Picking a fight now would be very unwise. Earlier, the Blood Butcher group stole something from Lu domain, and they chased them all the way to the Northern Spirit Wilderness." Mu Chen explained the events he encountered in the Northern Spirit Wilderness. He then showed the mustard seed bracelet on his wrist. "I took this without them noticing. They must have realized it, and that's why they had to act in Bailing City." Mu Feng and Zhou Yi exchanged a glance, both noticing a hint of seriousness in each other's eyes. They had heard of the Blood Slaughter group in the Lu domain, but hadn't paid much attention to them. However, seeing how much importance the Lu domain was placing on this matter, it seemed far from simple. This mustard seed bracelet might have some value, but it doesn't seem like it's worth the Lu domain's attention, Mu Feng chuckled and said. "Is there something inside it?" Mu Chen nodded, clenched his fist, and the ancient copper slab appeared in his hand. "It should be this. However, I checked it, and I didn't find anything particularly special." Mu Feng took the copper slab from Mu Chen's hand, running his fingers over its intricate patterns. He paused for a moment, then flipped it over. When he saw the black, massive bird pattern on the slab, he froze for a second, as if lost in thought. "This thing, it looks a bit like," Mu Feng murmured. Then his pupils shrank slightly. "It looks a bit like the 9-Nether Sparrow?" "The 9-Nether Sparrow?" Zhou Yi exclaimed, clearly shocked. "No way." "The 9-Nether Sparrow." Mu Chen's eyes also filled with surprise as he couldn't help but ask, "The same 9-Nether Sparrow that's ranked 11th on the Beast Catalog Earth list?" "From the looks of it, it does seem strikingly similar," Mu Feng nodded. After thinking for a moment, he suddenly clenched his hand, and fiery light coalesced within it. The flame condensed into a palm-sized fire sculpture, which looked like a fiery eagle. Its eyes were razor-sharp, its wings resembled dragon wings, and its claws were covered in crimson dragon scales. A mighty aura emanated from it. Is this the spirit essence of the dragon flame eagle that Father refined? Chen looked curiously at the exquisite fire sculpture. This was a true heavenly beast, ranked 85th on the Beast Catalog Earth list, far stronger than Teacher Mo's Golden Thunder Wolf or Master Shi's Stone Turtle Lion. The dragon flame eagle stood in Mu Feng's palm, gently approaching the ancient copper slab. When it saw the black bird pattern on the slab, its piercing, cold-eyed gaze flashed with a hint of panic. It quickly retreated, clearly wary and even fearful. Something that even the dragon flame eagle fears this much, and that looks like this? It must be the Nine Nether Sparrow, Mu Feng said with certainty, his tone resolute. The Nine Nether Sparrow, born in the northern nether region, with wings capable of covering mountains, and its netherworld light capable of swallowing the sun and moon. This description of the Nine Nether Sparrow echoed in Mu Chen's mind, making him unconsciously click his tongue. Its power was truly hard to fathom. If it really is the Nine Nether Sparrow, no wonder the Lu domain is taking it so seriously. If a strong divine soul realm cultivator could obtain the essence of the Nine Nether Sparrow, their power, it would be terrifying, Mu Feng sighed. But if it really is the Nine Nether Sparrow, does the Lu domain have the strength to challenge it? Mu Chen furrowed his brow. If it was truly the Nine Nether Sparrow, even the Lu domain, no matter how much of its power it exerted, wouldn't be able to capture it. The secret is likely in this copper slab. Mu Feng smiled faintly, and suddenly, a surge of powerful spiritual energy swept out from him. The energy poured into the copper slab like a flood. Mu Chen had tried something similar before, but it had no reaction. But Mu Chen's failure didn't mean Mu Feng would fail. After all, Mu Feng was a true late divine soul stage powerhouse, one of the top-tier experts in the northern spirit realm. The surging spiritual energy flowed into the copper slab, and finally, the previously still slab began to show signs of movement. A light emanated from within, forming a glowing screen in mid-air. Within that light screen, a vast, black forest appeared. Deep in that desolate forest, a massive black bird let out a sharp cry to the sky. Dark radiance poured from its body, and the area surrounding it seemed to be shrouded in darkness, as if even light itself was being swallowed. The black light grew denser and denser until it transformed into black flames that enveloped the bird. Its cry grew increasingly sorrowful. The scene shifted, and the massive bird's body rapidly shrank within the intense black flames. Eventually, with a mournful cry, it transformed into a black, giant egg, which then flew into the deepest part of the black forest. The vision ended, and a complex route appeared, which seemed to be a map. It really is the Nine Nether Sparrow. Mu Feng exhaled deeply, his eyes filled with undisguised shock. And this Nine Nether Sparrow was trying to evolve? Mu Chen's heart skipped a beat. The Nine Nether Sparrow was already formidable, and if it evolved further, wouldn't that qualify it to challenge the Beast Catalog's Heaven list? It seems Lu Domain is indeed after the Nine Nether Sparrow. We can't let them have it. Zhou Ye's expression was grim. If Lu Domain obtained the Nine Nether Sparrow, their strength would soar. Given their temperament, they would likely no longer tolerate Mu Domain. Then we'll fight for it too. Mu Chen's eyes flickered as he stared intently at the ancient bronze piece. Father, where's this place? It looks somewhat familiar. Hearing this, Mu Feng chuckled softly, his gaze sharp. Of course, it looks familiar. This is in the northern spirit realm. Judging by the surroundings, it should be the Dark Abyss. Dark Abyss? Mu Chen was momentarily stunned upon hearing the name, then smacked his lips. So it was that place. The Dark Abyss was a notorious death zone in the northern spirit realm. Unlike the northern spirit wilderness, which often attracted adventuring parties, the Dark Abyss was practically a forbidden land. Over the years, 9 out of 10 who dared enter never returned, their bodies dissolving into its putrid, corpse-laden swamps. Even the rare survivors who managed to escape were left traumatized, requiring years of recovery. Just hearing the name, dark abyss, would strike fear into their hearts ever after. The dark abyss is no easy place to enter. Zhou Yi frowned. He was well aware of its dangers. Treacherous swamps and countless deadly threats made even a slight misstep fatal. If it's for the Nine Nether Sparrow, this risk might be worth taking. Besides, if Lu Domain gets their hands on it, it'll be a huge problem for us. Mu Feng pondered aloud. Zhou Yi nodded. The Nine Nether Sparrow was too powerful. In its prime, no one in the northern spirit realm would dare covet it. But from the looks of it, the creature had failed its evolution. This was its weakest moment. Lu Domain wouldn't let such an opportunity slip away. What's our move? Mu Feng thought for a moment. First, we'll send our best scouts to monitor Lu Domain's movements. This matter must remain a secret. If word gets out, plenty of other factions will want a piece of the pie. Lu Domain knows this, so they won't act openly but in secret. The Dark Abyss is shrouded in death miasma year-round, only weakening slightly during the height of summer. That time isn't far off. If Lu Domain makes a move, they'll do it then, Zhou Yi speculated. Mu Feng nodded. We'll quietly gather our forces too. When the time comes, even if we don't get the Nine Nether Sparrow, we'll make sure Lu Domain walks away empty-handed. Given their history with Lu Domain, denying them victory was already a win for Mu Domain. All right, I'll start preparing now. Zhou Yi, a man of swift action, agreed immediately and left without delay. Mu Feng watched him go, then turned to Mu Chen with a smile, ruffling his hair. You little rascal, bringing your old man such a big surprise. Father, take me to the Dark Abyss. Mu Chen grinned. That place is far too dangerous. It's not for you. Mu Feng frowned. Come on, I survived the Spirit Road, didn't I? That place wasn't any less deadly than the Dark Abyss. Mu Chen smiled lightly. Mu Feng was taken aback. He studied the young man before him. Though Mu Chen's face still carried traces of youth, his sharp features had grown firm with resolve. A hint of nostalgia washed over Mu Feng. When had the little boy he raised grown so much? Fine. If you insist, you can come. But don't do anything reckless. Mu Feng smiled, a touch of pride in his eyes. His son would one day surpass him. Mu Chen nodded, then grinned mischievously. Also, I need your help with something. What is it? Mu Feng asked, puzzled. It's about me. Mu Chen shrugged helplessly. Ever since I started cultivating the great pagoda art, I've felt like something is hidden inside me. Can you explain? Mu Feng froze, then chuckled. Oh, so you finally noticed? Mu Chen merely stared at him. He knew his father well. If Mu Feng was acting casual, it meant the matter was anything but simple. You can't keep secrets from me forever. Mu Feng met his son's serious gaze, and after a long pause, the smile on his face faded. A hint of bitterness tugged at his lips. I didn't think you'd notice so soon. I figured you'd need at least another half a year. But there's no point asking me. Mu Feng sighed. It was actually within my expectations. With your strength, Dad, you should still be unable to do something like this, Mu Chen said, not surprised by the answer, but instead smiling. You brat, you really need a beating. Mu Feng's old face flushed red, feeling belittled by his son. What did Mom do to me? Mu Chen looked down at his body, slightly confused. Because you're her biological son, and you have her bloodline, when you were born, she set a sealing array within your body. That's why, all these years, you haven't been able to detect your spirit vein, Mu Feng explained. My spirit vein was sealed by Mom? Why? Mu Chen said in astonishment. He had always thought he didn't have a spirit vein, but it turned out it was sealed by his mother. 2 reasons. While a spirit vein can significantly enhance your cultivation, sometimes excessive talent can become an obstacle. To become a true powerhouse, you need to match such talent with the right mindset. There are too many geniuses in this world, but how many can truly look down upon all others? Mu Feng smiled faintly, continuing, You've probably heard of many who broke through dimensional boundaries from lower realms into the great thousand worlds. Those are the true strong ones, possessing an unshakable willpower. If you want to match them in strength, you too need this kind of mindset. So, what's the other reason? Mu Chen nodded, asking, The other reason? Mu Feng gave a bitter smile, saying, "If your mother hadn't sealed your spirit vein, both of us might have had trouble. You might not even have made it this far." Mu Chen frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" "I've told you what you need to know, but there are some things you're not ready for yet." Mu Feng shook his head, looking at his son with a serious gaze. "Just know that your mother did this to protect you. And you can't act rashly. Your mother has already made a great sacrifice for you. So until you're strong enough, don't try to break the seal inside you." Mu Feng's expression became much more serious. "Mom." Mu Chen mumbled softly, his hand gently brushing his chest. That word brought a warmth from the depths of his soul. The gentle figure in his heart, although they had never met, felt incredibly familiar, as if their bloodlines were intertwined. What had happened when he was young that caused their family to separate, leaving him as a baby unable to clearly remember that warm figure? "Once you're strong enough, you'll naturally learn the truth." Mu Feng patted Mu Chen on the shoulder. "So, when can the seal in my body be unlocked?" Mu Chen hesitated for a moment before asking. Unlocked? The seal your mother left behind isn't that easy to break. But she left you the key. As long as you're capable, you'll be able to gradually unlock it yourself," Mu Feng said with a smile. "The key?" Mu Chen's eyes lit up. "Is it the Great Pagoda art?" "Yes," Mu Feng nodded. "When you cultivate the Great Pagoda art to the level of Pagoda transformation, you should be able to break the seal your mother set." Pagoda transformation. Mu Chen moved his lips. He had already experienced how difficult it was to cultivate the Great Pagoda art. To reach its highest level, he really didn't know how long it would take. Also, during this time, you should study spiritual array studies. "I'll find a spiritual array master to teach you," Mu Feng suddenly said. "Spiritual arrays?" Mu Chen was surprised, then scratched his head. "I've never studied it. Are you really planning to make me a spiritual array master? Your mother had great skill in this field. As her son, you can't be totally clueless, can you? Otherwise, when you meet her again, she might say I didn't teach you well. So, make sure you put in the effort," Mu Feng said with a smile, ruffling Mu Chen's head. He then slowly walked out of the living room, leaving Mu Chen feeling a little frustrated. Being a spiritual array master wasn't that easy. How could his mother be so talented at everything?